Hello, good afternoon. Today I've got something very interesting for you. We're going to be looking at near-death experience blind vision. So these are cases of people who have been blind since birth, who had a near-death experience, and then during the near-death experience, they can see for the first time in their life. There is a report, a study that was done years ago, and it focused on 31 individuals, all of them blind, all of them who had a near-death experience, and all who could see. And their cases were examined and they were analyzed and all of that. So for me, this particular near-death experience blind vision is a subset of what I call the veridical experiences, the out-of-body experiences. Those are the ones that give skeptics fits. Talking about skeptics for a moment. Skeptics are the people who don't believe that near-death experiences are real. They don't believe that the out-of-body experiences are real. They don't believe in any of this stuff. They try to use science to explain it away. For example, they'll say that these are just what happens when the body doesn't have enough oxygen, or when the brain has too much carbon dioxide, or it's just hormones, or it's just a massive release of chemicals that the body can produce in an effort to survive whatever it is that's killing it. Well, that's fine up to a certain point. However, the veridical experience, the out-of-body experiences, and I just recently did a piece on that as well, you can't explain those things away. This is where people are out of their bodies and they can see things that should have been impossible for them to see. Rather than going through all that material again, I'll just refer you back to that other article. The other one that I did just a couple of days ago was the miracle cures. So these are people who, let's say, for example, somebody dies of cancer, the cancer kills them, they have a near-death experience, they come back from their near-death experience, and then they are miraculously cured of whatever it was that killed them as a result of the near-death experience. That's the other ones you can't explain away. And these things are well documented. There's medical records, there's imagery, there's MRIs and CAT scans and blood tests and doctor reports and everything else that prove, yeah, the person was really sick and they died. And then as a result, after the near-death experience, they're miraculously cured. So veridical experience is one, miracle cures is another, and now this near-death experience blind vision subcategory of the data, subset of data, is another one that you just can't explain away. You just can't say, no, it doesn't happen. Yeah, it does. There are several. They're historical, basically. These are the accounts that have been around forever. Anybody who studies near-death experience knows about these things. Particularly, the most famous is Vicki Noratuk. So she was born blind and never saw during her life. When she was 22 years old, she was in a car accident and she died in the car accident. She had a near-death experience and she could see during the near-death experience, and that was the only time she could see. So she described that, and it's clearly documented. And again, that's the most famous case out of all of them. When I look at near-death experiences overall, I look at everything as a data analyst. Show me the data, let me look at the data, and I'll figure out what the data says. I don't have a bias going in, I don't have any preconceived notion. So it's a fair question to ask, how often do these near-death experience blind vision incidents occur? If you do the math, and to get straight to the bottom line, according to the math, there's about 78 blind people every day who have a near-death experience. The way you get there is you say there's 8.3 billion people on the planet. According to the World Health Organization, there's about 43 million people around the world who meet the clinical criteria for blindness. Now, what's the prevalence of NDEs? That's been studied, and it's about 5%. What that means is out of every 100 people, 5 will have some kind of a near-death experience at some point in time during their life. Maybe not now, it might be you. Hasn't happened yet. Maybe it'll happen in 20 years. Who knows? But that's what it works out to. Then you look at how many people are alive on the planet right now. You do the math, chunka. You end up with about 15,000 near-death experiences worldwide every day. Now, those are not near-death experiences with blind people. If you run one number against the other, how many near-death experiences, how many people are blind, what's the percentage of the total population, that works out to about 78 blind people who have near-death experiences around the world every day. Okay, if you say that's too much, it's not 5%, there's another hole in the data here, because when you have people that meet the clinical criteria for blindness, that's not people who were born blind. Maybe you have someone who was born with sight, they know what seeing is, maybe they had an industrial accident and they become blind later on. Happens to guys in the military all the time. An IED blows up in their face. Now they're blind. Okay, they would not qualify for what I'm talking about here for people who were blind since birth, who have never seen anything ever. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So it's going to be a smaller number. All right, it's not going to be 78. It's going to be a smaller number. Doesn't matter. Is it 10, 20, a day, daily? You're still talking massive and massive amounts of data. Even if it's 3 people a day, do the math. How much is that over 20 years? It's a lot of people. Okay. Doesn't really matter. What I'm saying is it's just to give you an idea of the concept that when you do the math on how prevalent this is, it's not like it's super hyper rare. Now, there's another thing to consider here too. There is what I call a linguistical trap. As a linguist, you understand, or I understand, that words are what we use to describe things. That humans, we label everything. That there's name something that hasn't been labeled by people. Okay. We label everything in every language, so this is just kind of like what we do. If you've never had a near-death experience and you've crossed over for the first time, that you are now no longer in your body, so you're not limited by your brain, which is limited for human size. You're not limited by your eyes, which are, pie-shaped vision, and we can only see the light wavelengths that we can see. All of those restrictions are removed. So imagine this. I know it's impossible to imagine, but imagine that you're a person who has been blind since birth, who has never seen anything. All of a sudden, you have a near-death experience, and now you can see. You might not even know that that's seeing. That they use language like, well, I knew where everything was, and they'll say, I was perceiving things. I was able to perceive it. Maybe they don't use language in their description to say, I saw. Because if you've never seen anything, you might not even know that is seeing. In some cases, they can describe things and all of that. Well, how did you know it? Well, I don't know how I knew it, but I just knew it. Well, that comes down to basically being able to perceive it. The same way that during the near-death experience, all communication is telepathic. You and I can't sit here and have a conversation completely telepathically. On the other side, you can. Okay? That's different. So there's a chapter in my book. It's called Words Can't Describe, because it's a commonality of all near-death experiences. When people come back, they just don't have the words to describe what it was like on the other side. So that's very, very common. I've got what I call the Holy Grail Grand Slam case. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So if you combine near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, a miraculous cure, and near-death experience, blind vision, imagine if you could find a person who was blind since birth, had a near-death experience, which is rare enough, had an out-of-body experience, which is, again, a subset, kind of rare, and then they have near-death experience, blind vision, and then add on top of that a miraculous cure. So they died, they crossed over, they left their body, and now they could see, but then add on the miraculous cure, so their blindness is cured when they come back, okay? How cool would that be if you could find that case? And I looked, and there's no case like that that's documented in the near-death experience data that I could find. Maybe that person is out there. I don't know. Could be, might happen. Typically, the miraculous cure things relate directly to people who had some kind of an illness that killed them, and then the miraculous cure was related directly to that illness. So somebody has chronic illness or some kind of a disease, they cross over, and then when they come back, that chronic disease is gone. Maybe they had cancer, and the cancer is what killed them, and then when they come back, the cancer is cured. Those kinds of things. The case that I just recently did in India, the guy died in 1950 of a fever, right? And when he was over there, they gave him something that cured him, and it cured him of that illness that he had. But once again, from then on, he never got sick again for the rest of his life. So that's another one that falls into the miraculous cure thing. So that's what I'm looking at for today. It's kind of at the point, I've reached just the point of just accepting and looking at all of these things, that there's just too much data to explain away, that I've reached the point that these near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, these things are just what it is. It's just what happens. It happens to all of us. It happens to everybody who's human. The skeptics are going to skeptic, man. Hey, believe what you want. You know, that's the nice part about all of this. Everybody gets to believe whatever they want. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. You know why? Because I don't care. And here's the kicker. When we die, the same thing's going to happen to everybody anyway. Skeptic or not, atheist or not, people who think it's all hooey or not, you're going to find out. Anyway, that's everything I've got for today. Please remember to like, follow, share, do all of the social media things. Check out my book. It's available on Amazon. There's also links to it on the website. It's called You're Going to Die Someday, right? The website is www.winnernde.com, as in winnernear-death-experience.com. Everything goes up on the website, winnernde.com, and it's also posted on about 7 or 8 different social media channels, all under the Winner NDE branding. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you have an amazing day. Have an amazing 4th of July. Peace out. Bye.